At 8:34 a.m. this morning, the Houston Police Department received a call of a robbery in progress at the ExxonMobil located at 10721 South Post Oak. Our officers responded and arrived at the scene at about 8:37 a.m. to my recollection, in about 3 minutes. What occurred at the South Post Oak location is the suspect went in and actually robbed the location at gunpoint. There's a female clerk. He went behind the desk, the counter. The register was open. He grabbed the money. He then grabbed some beer and got into a vehicle to escape the scene. The clerk came out of the Exxon with their cell phone, taking videos or pictures of the suspect vehicle. The suspect noticed and he immediately turned around and came back to confront the clerk at gunpoint. The clerk, as she saw him coming back, ran back into the Exxon, locked the doors behind her, at which time, when he noticed the doors were locked, he fired several rounds at the clerk. When our officers arrived, they spoke with the clerk. Again, 3 minutes into this, from the time receiving the call, they spoke with the clerk, who gave a suspect description and stated the suspect had robbed the store and an additional person outside of the store. The suspect fled in a Toyota Avalon north on South Post Oak. Our department our officers immediately put out a be on the lookout for the suspect vehicle, which was described again as a black Avalon, and even provided a license plate. Fortunately, Bel Air PD monitors our frequency, and we monitor each other's frequencies. When they heard the bolo, they received a call shortly thereafter of multiple crashes, and one crash right here on the freeway behind me in the 5600 block of the freeway. When Bel Air PD arrived on the scene, they recognized the vehicle involved, the black Avalon, as the suspect vehicle. The suspect came out of the vehicle armed with a handgun, with a revolver, refused to obey the commands of the police officers from Bel Air. Started walking and fleeing over here in the shopping center behind me, where the medical facility's at. I think part of HEC is near here as well. Our officers also arrived on scene within minutes, and they began trying to follow the suspect, try to take him into custody. While the suspect tried to flee on foot, he continued to display his firearm, pointed it at different people, including officers, refused commands. At a couple of points while he was trying to flee, he attempted to carjack innocent individuals. They would pull up in their car, point their gun at them, trying to get them to stop and comply. Clearly, these people luckily did not stop. They took off. At one point, when the suspect was still trying to flee on foot, at about 8:56 a.m., one of our officers, a lieutenant who's been on for 22 years, has 22 years of service, discharged several rounds, striking the suspect behind me here on the street. The suspect continued to flee on foot into the Bedros parking lot over here, and he ultimately collapsed there. Bel Air Fire arrived on the scene, attempted to save the suspect, obviously rendered medical aid, but sadly, unfortunately, he was pronounced by Bel Air Fire as deceased here on the scene. No civilians were hurt from the actual gunshots from the suspect or gunshots from our officer, our lieutenant. One civilian was transported to the hospital, again, as a result of the multiple crashes. There was 2 or 3 crashes that occurred on the freeway, and I think all of them occurred in the Bel Air jurisdiction. And I'll turn over to the chief here in a minute if he wants to talk about the crashes. At this point, we have the Special Investigations Unit of the Houston Police Department that investigates officer-involved shootings and other criminal investigations involving members of the Houston Police Department or other agencies. We also have the District Attorney's Office here from Harris County. We have the Houston Forensic Science Center here helping process the scene. And we have Bel Air PD again, who were instrumental in helping us find this suspect and ultimately capture the suspect. After the suspect was shot by our officer, by our lieutenant, from a location here on this side of the street, the suspect continued. He actually dropped the gun at that point after being shot and continued to flee on foot into the Boudreaux's, at which point Chief Holloway's personnel were able to take the suspect and secure him without further incident. With that else?
Did you say if it, oh, I'm so sorry.
Go ahead.
Did you say if it was an HPD officer or a Bel Air police officer?
The only shots were fired. The only shots fired in this event and the event at the Exxon, the suspect fired shots at the Exxon, and the only person that fired a shot here, several shots, was a member of the Houston Police Department, a 22-year veteran who's a lieutenant. And I'm going to just say this because there are a lot of critics of police that think that we just come out here and we don't care about human life, the sanctity of life. I've talked to my lieutenant. He's shaken up, just like almost 100% of the time. His heart's aching, despite the fact that based on what we've seen so far and what we know, he acted professionally and appropriately. He's hurting. And he's hurting because he had to take a life. And so my heart goes out to the loved ones of this suspect who, you know, but for the grace of God, go all of us, where our kids can end up meeting the wrong person, going down the wrong path, or get involved in drugs, or get involved in mental illness. You know, my heart goes out to whoever loves this person. We have not identified him yet. But my heart also goes out to everyone involved, including the woman that's just trying to earn a living at the Exxon gas station, and a guy that I can almost assure you, once we find out this man's history, it won't be his first rodeo. And there's a good chance, and I'm looking to having that conversation, that when we find out this man's criminal history, it's a man that my officer should have never had to take his life because he probably belonged behind bars. And that's what's going on in Texas. You know, everything civil liberties to the right and to the left. It's all about small government. And so we want to save dollars. We can't take shortcuts when it comes to violent criminals. They need to be put away. And so we're going to take a look at what this man's criminal history is, and I want to have that conversation. Because a lieutenant that came to work today, that never in his wildest dreams wanted to take a life, was forced to take a life, and I'm willing to bet anybody here listening that we're going to find out this is a person with a criminal history that probably has committed violent crimes. And I'm going to report back to the community, because we were lucky that that woman was smart enough to get back into that gas station, lock herself in. Do you think that that man would have killed that woman, that clerk, had she not had the presence of mind to lock herself into that gas station? And I'm willing to tell you the answer is yes, because he's shooting into that building. So this is a conversation we need to keep having, because you've got a lean police department that, thank God for Mayor Turner and his council colleagues, that yesterday talked about wanting to hire 500 more police officers, 100 a year for 5 years. We just got to figure out how to pay it, and that's going to be up to the taxpayers to figure out. But when you think about how lean we are, department, we're trying to work smarter and do more with less, but we need everybody, including the criminal justice system, to do its jobs. And if we find out this guy belonged in prison, we're going to come back and report it, because it's important. Because lives were placed at risk today, and we shouldn't give criminals a quick second, third, fourth chance to commit violent crime against us. La última cosa que le hice en español muy rápido es que yo sé que yo estaba hablando mucho que en Harris County, en el estado de Texas, algo está pasando, que muchas personas que están involucradas en actos de violencia no están en la prisión por muchos años, lo están soltando, lo están haciendo esto y soltándolo de nuevo. Yo no sé nada de este sospechoso, yo no sé su historia, no sé su nombre, pero yo estoy claro, puedo apostar hoy mismo, que estoy casi seguro que cuando sepamos quién es, va a tener una historia de haber cometido crímenes. Y tuvimos suerte hoy que de esas pobres señora que está trabajando en una gasolinera, que tuvo la presencia de cerrar la puerta con el pestillo, porque yo estoy seguro, si esa mujer no hubiera sido eso, la hubiera matado. Y mi oficial vino a trabajo hoy, no vino pensando que iba a tener que tomar una vida. Mi oficial está dolorido, está muy triste porque tuvo que matar a un ser humano. Y tenemos que tener una conversación sobre qué clase de ciudad queremos, qué clase de estado queremos. En vez de estar hablando de santuario en el SB4 o los baños y toda esta, porque dijo una palabra mala, no lo va a decir. Tenemos que estar hablando qué estamos haciendo contra los criminales que lo están asaltando. Y no son los inmigrantes, que sabemos que Eso es lo que están hablando a nivel nacional y estatal. Sabemos que la mayoría de las personas que están cometiendo estos crímenes violentos son personas nacidas aquí y son personas que tenemos que llevar a la cuenta. ¿Okay? La última cosa que quiero decirles es que necesitamos la comunidad que sepa que este departamento tiene muy pocos policías y entonces con pocos policías están poniendo a la comunidad y a los oficiales en peligro que no lo merecen. Okay? You look like you're chomping at the bit. What's up?
Yeah, just want to ask you to backtrack for a couple seconds. You say that conversation needs to take place within the justice system. Where does it begin? You talk to the DA's office, they say the judges set bond. So how do you get
it begins at the state, and I've had this conversation with actually with the governor and the lieutenant governor. They were so busy last session attacking cities as it relates to funding. Now they're talking about reducing it to 2.5, capping the property tax. Well, tell that to the people of Houston. Tell that to the people that are being victimized by these violent criminals, right? Real easy to do. And then we're talking about bathroom bills, and we're talking about sanctuary city bills. It's nothing but political theater. We've got real crime going on in the state of Texas and in this country that disproportionately, it is not immigrants that are committing it, legal or illegal. It's people born and raised in this country. We need to have a conversation about gun violence, right? And when people commit gun violence and display a firearm, they need to go to prison. And when they discharge a firearm in the commission of a felony, they need to stay in prison. And when they shoot somebody, which means they try to kill somebody, they shouldn't be out. Trooper Allen, who was murdered on Thanksgiving, I went to his funeral. I got to see that family in pain, was murdered by somebody that was out on a low bond that a short time before that murder had beat the heck out of a deputy. And I remember when I saw those pictures of that deputy that was beat to a pulp, that guy's on low bond and we had a trooper that's dead. That's what we need to be talking about in the state legislature. Not about bathroom bills that aren't needed, not about sanctuary cities becoming demagogues about immigrants when we know the vast majority are but for their immigration status are law-abiding Americans. We need to start talking about real issues impacting our community. And this thing about a 2.5 property tax, you know, when you don't have to run anything, you can have that kind. But we have to run schools, we have to run police departments, we have to build roadways. Leave our property taxes here instead of sending them to all these school districts so we can educate our kids, and then go do your cow. It is very frustrating because the political theater has real consequences, and we're seeing those consequences here. Okay? The consequences are about life and death and safety for the people that we serve, whether it's in Houston or Dallas or Austin. We need to start having conversations that matter and not have conversations that only matter to politics and primary politics, where both bases on the left and the right are out of touch. Because this is what's happening in our country every day, not just in Houston, but all over the country. Thank you, guys.